2 or 3, 4 years ago, I don't know how long it has been, I began looking from time to time at what I entitled One Verse Wonders. And various ones of you have submitted verses that you would like to have presentations about, and so I would encourage you to do that again if you've come across some verses. One verse wonders. Now, depending on what verse you provide, I get to decide if it means, I wonder, what does that mean? I don't understand the verse. Or, this is a great verse, let's talk about it. Those are two different kinds of lessons. So, but if you have a verse, just one verse, that's what I'll do. One verse wonders. Tonight is one of those. It's an easy one. In fact, if you didn't know it, you probably just memorized it. You could probably memorize it in 5 different translations and get it right. Rejoice always, or as one translation says, evermore. Rejoice. When we talk about this, we distinguish between two ideas, happiness and joy. Now, what we talk about in happiness is what we refer to as temporary and situational. I am happy right now because this happened. Then an hour later, I am not happy now because something else happened. So there it is, momentary, situational. But then we think about joy, and we use the word joy to mean continuous and boundless. So, we listen to someone who is dealing with a terrible tragedy, and they say, I'm not happy, but because of the Lord I have joy. And so we use those words in those ways, and we understand what we are saying. Well, guess what? We get that from the Bible. Turn to Matthew chapter 5, passage that you know very well. Turns out that's the same thing in the language of Greek that is the source language of Scripture in the New Testament. The exact same determination is used in these words. Now, you'll know it properly, or most likely you will know it better, as blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who mourn. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst. You know the Beatitudes. And so you go down from verse 3 to verse 11, and you see that word blessed. That is the word for happy. In the Greek language, makaros, happy. Should I say happy, happy, happy? If you are on board with that. Now, the idea is, now notice this is very important. The idea is that this is a word that God uses. It's not our word. I mean, it's not saying temporary and fleeting. But it is a word that means it is only when you recognize it. These first words, this blessed, all the way down through verse 11, is saying when you recognize it, you don't know it necessarily, but you're happy. There's reason to be happy, maybe we should say. There is a blessedness in you. Maybe you don't always get it, but it's there. But now look at verse 12. rejoice and be exceeding glad, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Now, use that with verses 10 and 11 to help us illustrate the point. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice. Now, notice what is happening. With respect to this word, rejoice. Joy or rejoicing means acknowledge what is already there. Acknowledge what is there. So here I am being persecuted for my faith, whatever that is. Our persecution ideas, things that we put up with in persecution, pale to the way some have been in other countries at other times. But think about it for just a minute. A time when you felt like you were being persecuted for righteousness' sake, okay? Rejoicing says, recognize the blessing that is already there. Rejoicing means put into practice what I tell you is already happening, already a possibility, or something that I want you to acknowledge. So by definition, there is a blessedness, Bible happiness, in being persecuted. Therefore, rejoice. Rejoice. So when you rejoice, you are acknowledging that what God said is true. You are acknowledging and saying, okay, God, I get it. I am rejoicing because I understand what you're saying. You're saying that by being persecuted, this is a good thing, and therefore I am going to rejoice in it. And that would apply to any type of way you want to talk about the word rejoicing. But see what he's saying. I want you to understand what's going on here. The word rejoice is an intentional desire, an intentional action that flows from an acceptance that there is already happiness or blessedness there. When I see it, I should rejoice. If I don't see it, it's still there. But I can't rejoice until I see it. So in persecution, Jesus was saying, there is a blessedness there. I'm telling you. And when you don't see it, I'm telling you, it's there. Therefore, rejoice. Okay, I get that. Always. At all times. Ever. Always. That's what he's saying. This word, rejoice always. Pretty obvious. To help us understand it, look at 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, the passage we're looking at, but I want you to look at the verse above it. Look above 16. That would be 15. Okay? Look at 15. See that no one renders evil for evil to anyone, but always, there it is, always pursue what is good, both for yourselves and for all. Let me ask you a question. Think of a time right now. I want you to think of a time when it is all right not to pursue what is good. You think deeply, get it in your head. Okay, I want to imagine with you what you're thinking. All right, here's a situation. And because of the situation, I know that God says it's okay for me not to do what's good. Really? So what we're saying is there ever a time when I could choose not to pursue what is good? Well, obviously not. Because you know what the other side of that is? If I'm not choosing what is good, pursuing what is good, what am I pursuing? I'm pursuing what is evil. Because didn't Jesus say, if you're not for me, you are against me? There's no middle ground, which means there's no middle ground. You're either pursuing what is good or you are not. And if you are not pursuing what is good, then you are, by definition, pursuing what is evil. Isn't that what it's saying? So if I'm always, and we understand what always means, as it relates to pursuing good, then isn't that the same definition on rejoicing, the next verse? Rejoice always. So is it ever okay for me not to rejoice? Is it ever okay for me not to have joy? I don't think so. Doesn't seem to be. Whew, that's hard. That's hard. I get that. But remember the difference. Happiness, joy. You can't always be happy. Have you ever been around somebody who's always happy and it just wears you out? I mean, come on, you know people like they're always happy. I mean, they are always happy. And sooner or later, even those of us who are optimists, that'll get to you after a while. There's got to be something wrong, something. Actually, I admire those kind of people, I really do. But it is tiring from time to time because every now and then, we just want to pout for a little bit. That's just who we are. I'm not happy. Interesting thing about not being happy. Have you noticed? People who choose not to be happy, they're not satisfied not being happy. They're only satisfied if everybody else knows they're not happy. Now I'm satisfied. Now, if you can get away and not be happy all by yourself, I can understand that. But here's what he's saying. Always pursue rejoicing. So there should never be a time in life when I'm not rejoicing, or at least that's what I should be choosing to do. There will be many, many times when I'm not happy. But in that happiness or unhappiness, God is saying there is still rejoicing in the unhappiness. Now go find it. That's what he's saying. When he says rejoice always, he's saying go find a reason to rejoice. Wonder why? You think God is saying, listen, if you go find a reason to rejoice, whatever is going on, you can handle. But if you don't go find a reason to rejoice, you think you'll fall off into depression? Okay, so now we get the idea. Rejoice, happy, always, always, always. Shake your head like this if you got it. Okay, I'm going to accept that you got it. So, now why? James chapter 1. James chapter 1. Here's why. Here's why, or maybe we could phrase it this way. Here is where God says, go find your rejoicing. Go find it. Go look for it. Because I should be able to rejoice at all times and in every situation. Listen to this. Verse 2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. Go find your rejoicing by noticing how the situation is giving you an opportunity to learn patience. That's what God is telling me to do. He's saying, rejoice always. Go find your rejoicing. Where is your rejoicing to be found? In the patience the situation is giving me. Go find your rejoicing. Number 2, let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Go find your rejoicing. Find your rejoicing that you are becoming a complete person. God wants you and me to be complete. And therefore, He is saying, as you go find your rejoicing, you can find it in patience, and when you find it in patience, you will see that it is making you a complete person. So go find your rejoicing by saying, all right, this is helping me to be better. We can rejoice in being better. That's a good thing. Now, I got to tell you, not every single moment are you better. Curtis and I, just now thought of this, Curtis and I were moving that big old chair rack. And I don't know why, because I'm thinking I'm a good guy and I did him a good job at the wedding. He ran that sucker right over my toe. He did. He did. And then he backed up and tried to do it again, and I had to move. Now, you know how heavy those things are? He said, I'm sorry, did you lose your toenail? I don't know. I don't know. Okay? What is the rejoicing in that rack running over my toe? I'll tell you what it was. It didn't run over the top of my foot. That's one, because if it had run over the top of my foot, I would not have an arch. It would have just flattened right out. There is rejoicing. You know what another play of rejoicing is in that? I got something to hold over Curtis now. Now that's a source of rejoicing. So you got to find it where you can get it. All right? So I'm being completed when he ran that rack over my toe. All right. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives liberally to all without reproach, and it'll be given to him. But let him ask in faith without doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. Let not that man suppose that he will receive anything from the Lord. He's a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. Go find your rejoicing. There is wisdom that will come from that opportunity. There's wisdom there. The wisdom might simply be, I'm going to put my foot here next time. But that's wise. I wasn't thinking. Had it in the wrong place. He moves that thing with me again. My foot's not going to be in the same place. Wisdom. Think, you see. Go find your rejoicing. That's what God is saying. Go get the wisdom from that situation, that event, that thing. Verse 9. Let the brother glory in his exaltation. The lowly brother glory in his exaltation. Now, this whole thing was about submitting to the situation. Go get your rejoicing, because in this situation, I am learning to be humble. I am learning to be humble. Go get your rejoicing. You are becoming a humble person because the things with which you are dealing are reminding you that things in other places could be a whole lot worse. I think it goes without saying, it's easy to rejoice when whatever's going on is joyous and happy and exciting. We can rejoice. So obviously, what's he talking about? He's not addressing those things. He's addressing the things that aren't that way. So all of these things apply to the times that don't come across that way. They are not exciting and great and wonderful and write home to mom about. These are things that are devastating at times, difficult, negative. Go find your rejoicing. Remember this. This text is a command. It's a command. And the command says, rejoice always. So God is telling me, you go find the reason to rejoice that already exists in the situation. So really what God has done is He has said, I'm telling you, there's always a reason there. Because haven't you heard people say in difficult times, I wonder what's going on that I can find that's good? What is it that's there that I can rejoice in? We may not know what it is at that moment, but now I can know that there is something there. Because if God says, rejoice always as a command, then it means that no matter where I am, what I'm doing, what's going on, situation or time, I can rejoice in it. It's there. I just got to go find it. Now, I can rejoice in every time, too. I can rejoice in the past. Revelation 13:8 speaks of Jesus Christ who was sacrificed before the foundation of the world. I can rejoice that in the past, before anything ever came to be, in the mind of God, Jesus was already sacrificed. That is, His plan of salvation was already set in motion. I can rejoice in the past that plan has always been in existence. God didn't forget about me. He didn't leave me hanging. He didn't leave me in the dark. He always had a plan. Rejoice in the past. Rejoice in the present. Rejoice in the present. 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 2, Paul writing to the Corinthians said, rejoice in hope of the glory of God in which you stand. The salvation in which you stand, that is. That's the verse I meant. The salvation in which you stand. We have salvation right now. It's not something only for the future. Right now, rejoice in the present. No matter where you are and what you're doing, you can be a saved person at every moment. And third, rejoice in the future. Rejoice in hope of the glory of God. Because it's coming. There is a rejoicing that will be culminated, full, absolutely overflowing more than we can even imagine. The hope of heaven. So when Paul says rejoice evermore, he is commanding us to see and to express what already is there through the blessedness of whatever by rejoicing. Go find it. Go get it. Be a rejoicing person. You got to reach out there and get it. In every situation and in every time, go get it. You and I, we are responsible for our own rejoicing. And if we can't rejoice, nobody can make it happen. We can encourage, we can remind. That's what this lesson is doing. It's reminding us that we can. So, this one verse wonder has got a lot of power packed into two words, it seems to me. Based on this morning's coming judgment combined with tonight's rejoicing always, if you were to hear the trumpet sound right now, would your first reaction be joy? Or would it be terror? Good question. Good question for all of us. I hope you'd rejoice because you are a child of God, immersed into the family of God, excited because now we get to go home. But if your first thought would be terror, your next thought now can be, oh, I haven't heard it yet. I still have a chance to get it right so that I can be a rejoicing person. Can we help you tonight? We'd love to if you'd come as we stand and sing.